the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. Getting a college degree in Detroit has never been easy. More than half of all children in Detroit live below the poverty line. Many Detroit public school graduates don't enroll in college within a year of finishing high school. And of those who do enroll, most don't earn a degree within 6 years. Now, Detroit Public Schools just recorded its highest graduation rate in nearly 2 decades. The district has been making a lot of strides, but it's always been a hard race for Detroit kids, and right now, it could be getting more difficult. Student loan rules are changing in July. The programs that help low-income students get to college are on the chopping block in President Donald Trump's latest budget. And the department that oversees all of these things has cut its workforce in half. So how are students impacted by these changes? How are they interpreting them? The folks at the Detroit College Access Network have a sense of this. They work with students to help them navigate financial aid, applications, and what comes after. They've got a big goal: 60% of Detroit residents with some form of post-secondary education by 2030. Sakia Lee is the executive director of the Detroit College Access Network, and she joins me now. Welcome back, Sakia.
Thank you so much for having me back, Robin.
So first and foremost, you were just in Washington, D.C. for a National College Attainment Summit. What did you learn while you were there?
Oh, I learned so many things. So first, I want to say shout out to the National College Attainment Network, NCAN, for bringing leaders from across the country together. We start the summit by getting a federal update, which is a time when everybody is like completely silent and embracing for what we are about to discover. And then from there, we actually go off to do Hill visits with, our state delegations. And so it's always a time where you get to sit with staffers and policymakers and give them insights. And I just talk to them just human to human. But, that's really what the summit is composed of. It's a time where those that are doing the work on the ground can essentially pause, really tap into the policy efforts, hear about all things financial aid so we know how to go back and be best informed to support our students and counselors and families that we serve.
Okay, Sakia, you said everyone is bracing, though,
Yes.
to get the federal
Yes.
updates. I mean, talk more about that. What's the mood in that room right now among the people who do this work?
Yeah, a lot of us, like myself, have been in the game for some time, 10, 15, 20 years, but this is also a time to bring college students. And so they're really excited to be on the Hill, but we're like, oh my goodness, under this particular administration, not to make it political, we know there are going to be some cuts, right? And so when we are bootstrapped to the ground, like I am in Detroit, trying to hit the 60 by 30 goal, it's hard to keep momentum in the work. And so you just brace, because sometimes things are hot off the press. Sometimes there are things nobody knew about that comes out in this federal update. And, I'll give you an example. No one was best prepared to know that federal work study would be slashed potentially by 90%. So someone was like, when exactly did that change? We're like, over the weekend. So we're like, oh my goodness, federal work study could be slashed by 90%.
Explain the significance of federal work study.
Yeah.
Why is that such a huge deal that essentially, slashed by 90%, that essentially means it's going away?
Essentially, it means it's going away. So I am actually a product of federal work study. My very first job in the college access space was on Eastern Michigan University's campus. And at the time, the federal government paid 75% of my wages, and the institution only had to pay 25%. And so you can see why those positions would be attractive. But you're a young student, you're learning, you're working, you're getting the insights. And we already know there's a shortage of jobs on campuses anyway. So when we heard that the cuts would come by 90%, I immediately thought about the offices that would be impacted, those workers that you may find at the front desk that are the front lines that are filling in for the people that are behind the scenes doing a ton of other work, like campuses may not have that. And so we were like, where are students going to work at? I mean, there's only so many jobs at Wendy's and Taco Bell, et cetera, on campus. Like, what will students do if you remove that layer of income while they can learn and work at the same time? So that was one of the things that we just found out in the room, that we were like, yeah, I didn't know that coming in.
I want to talk about some of the other things on the table right now, too. I mean, this is under Trump's latest budget, right? The slashing of the federal work study. So Pell Grants are federal grants that help low-income students pay for college. They don't have to be repaid. Then there's TRIO and Gear Up. Those are programs that help students get there in the first place. So we're talking tutoring, mentoring, financial aid, counseling. Pretty much it's the kind of support that helps a first-generation student navigate a system that their parents never had to, right?
Right.
So, okay, the new Trump budget actually protects Pell Grants. Okay.
Yeah.
But it calls for eliminating TRIO and Gear Up entirely. Do I have that right?
You have that right.
Okay. So what does it mean for a Detroit student when the grant survives, but the pathway to getting the grant disappears?
Yeah, this is one of the things that actually made me sad to hear, and I'll get to the relevance in a moment. But all of us don't come to college with the same set of assets, right? Like, even everybody in this room, the studio, like, we come with something very different. And for those that come with a gap, eliminating the opportunity to get the tutoring, to come on campus 6 to 8 weeks earlier to get acclimated, to be able to understand your syllabus, where your classes are, the financial aid support. I used to be the financial aid administrator for TRIO Student Support Services. And so there was a dollar component that helped cover the housing, all of those things. So those students could then be able to persist. And that's really the issue. Like, yes, let's keep the Pell Grant, but the issue is persistence. You started at the top of the segment saying that not a lot of Detroit students finish college. We're at a 24% graduation completion rate in 6 years. So knowing that we could eliminate those programs, not just at local institutions, but at other, there are TRIO programs across the country that students get admitted to that specific program. So it absolutely breaks my heart to hear that we don't want to, anytime you want to take away tutoring, anytime you want to take away advising, there's some counseling components, because some of these students experience homelessness. They're in foster care, they're orphans, they're wards of the court, they're migrant students. Anytime you want to take away the advantage for them to close the gap, it honestly blows my mind. I love a personal student story. So I just want to plug really quickly a student that I had named Will, who was in TRIO Student Support Services many years ago. He was in foster care, and he was someone who, he was a student athlete, but he was on a partial scholarship. He didn't have a meal plan. And so whenever you saw him, if you had crackers, anything in your office, he's like, can I eat that? And your heart breaks. You're like, absolutely, eat the crackers. If
he's
that's
hungry.
He's hungry. He's dealing with food insecurity. There were times where we knew he needed a bath, so many things, but he needed every support that TRIO could offer him. He did finish with his degree on time because of the village of folks that support him, the early exposure. Went on to get a master's degree. I looked at LinkedIn last week. He now has a doctoral degree. He now has his own counseling practice. He works with student athletes. And I think about, if those supports go away, the impacts that it will have on the ability to reach one, teach one, and lift and climb. It blows my mind. There's really no reason to say, let's keep Pell by cutting these other programs. There are other ways that you can make up the shortfall for Pell, but cutting out those essential programs is just simply not the way.
When I hear a story like Will's, it's kind of devastating, Sakia. Devastating in all the best ways, right? That it really just was a matter of removing barriers for him. I'm wondering what it is like for you to be doing this work right now. You are a first-generation college graduate, and I know that has fueled and informed your mission to remove barriers for kids. What is this moment like?
It's one that's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. However, what keeps me grounded is just channeling like my inner Sojourner Truth, my inner Rosa Parks. I'm like, what did they feel like in those moments when it felt like things were devastating? And at the same time, I have a responsibility to the organization and really to my community to not feel like this is the moment to give up. It's very difficult. It's uncertain. However, in this country, we've seen things like this before. You know, I just say that history repeats itself in a very different way. But I know that the Detroit Promise is not going away. I know that Michigan Achievement Scholarship is there for students. I know that there is still institutional aid. I know that there is still the Coleman Young Scholarship. So what I hang my hat on at the end of the day is what do I know is certain versus what's uncertain. If I can steer families and students and counselors to like these supports are unchanging, they're unwavering. Let's just stick to what we know is all that I can do in this time.
Well, that's actually what I want to talk to you about a little more is that with the federal government stepping back, these local and state programs become that much more important. I mean, give us an example of one of them in particular and how you think it's making a really big dent for students right now.
Yeah. So I will lift up the Detroit Promise. We are working in partnership with them. And let me first begin by saying, like, they help reduce the tuition barrier for students, right? Now, Pell is applied first, which is why we still need the Pell, right? But from thereafter, if they have a certain GPA for four-year institutions, they can get the gap closed. And if a student is going to a community college, they can get the gap closed. And so they are looking at wraparound services for students. They're aligning their programmatic calendar with ours. We have a fireside chat in the next hour just to discuss like how we can work with counselors, how we can work with families, how we can do more marketing, how we can work together in the summer, really to keep kids informed all year round and really starting earlier. So not just focusing on that 12th grade year, but letting students know in early elementary, like, hey, you have the Detroit Promise. Because if you just go up to a random Detroit student and you say, like, do you know you have the Detroit Promise? They're going to be like, what is that? And what are you talking about, right? So that's just one program that I know is tried and true.
Zakia, when you talk about the Detroit Promise, the one thing that I have heard from a lot of students, unfortunately, is that they don't know anything about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There is such a marketing problem with Detroit Promise, even though I see it on billboards.
Yeah.
And even though it is something that within a lot of education circles, we're talking about it all the time. How do you change that, though? Like you're saying how important it is to make sure kids know about it at a younger age. Mm-hmm. It can't just be when they're seniors in high school. But how do you do that? How do you get the word out more, especially when we know that a lot of counselors have been cut from Detroit high schools?
Yeah, the CTA. So a couple of things. One, you got to really be in tandem with the district. And you have to ensure that counselors know, that teachers know, that after school programs know. And then the other thing that we're doing at DCAN is we have something that's called Champions for Change under our Graduate 313 umbrella. But we're hiring, and I say hiring because we're paying them. We're paying high school students in schools to be the ambassadors. Now, students don't have to listen to the adults. They're more likely to listen to their near peers. So if we got folks that are in school hallways that are like, hey, did you do your verification form? Hey, did you know that this, like, that's how you continue to build on the momentum. Even if we find ways to start earlier, you know, young people tend to forget some things too. But if you have that person embedded in the school all year round that's reminding folks of deadlines and things like that, I think we'll continue to make some strides. I'm with you. I mean, years ago, we didn't even have billboards about it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody watches Tubi. I started to see commercials on Tubi, and I was like, yep, because young people are probably watching Tubi, right?
Which is free via the Roku stick.
Yes. So there's a couple different ways, but we also think that really community level, it's got to be folks at churches. It's got to be folks on the block. It's got to be folks in the neighborhood. It's got to be embedded within the school day. It's got to be those near peers. It's several different ways it has to be approached for more students to understand what it is.
Basically, it's got to be guerrilla marketing.
It has to be.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. My guest is Sakia Lee. She's the executive director of the Detroit College Access Network. And we're discussing the path to college right now and why it seems to be getting longer and harder for some students. Sakia, I want to zoom out,
Yes.
if we could, and think about like the broader climate right now. And the ways that higher education is being looked at and in some cases targeted. I mean, I think some people are saying, well, colleges have become out of step with the public. They're much more liberal than the average American. They need to change things. What do you make of that critique of higher education?
Yeah, we're getting that a lot right now, in addition to students thinking about other ways to make money that doesn't include degrees, right? Everybody wants to be an influencer, entertainer, etc. But to the initial question, I think about the social determinants of health. My life is healthier because I went off to college. My friend circle is very different. My network is very different. My net worth. When you look at the life expectancy for those that go to college versus those that don't, it tends to be longer. And so while people may think things are too liberal, and higher education is not perfect. It's very costly. It's still a business. There's still some form of elitism that comes along with it in some places and spaces. However, I just look at like, how can this change your life? I'm a better person because of the decision I made at 18 years old to go off to Eastern Michigan University. That's what I want for students, the very best outcome that they can have. And that's what I focus on. So I ask them, like, what issue do you want to impact in your community? I don't ask, what do you want to go to college for? Because they may not be thinking about that. But if they tell me they want to go off and do a certain thing, that's what I tend to focus on. And that's really the story that I lead with telling. But most of my friends are educated. Most of my staff, I mean, there's just so many things. And that's not to say you can't be a productive citizen if you're not educated. I want to be very clear about that. But I also think that you got to think about the post-secondary pathway, because for some that's going to be career and workforce. And I would never say that's not the right pathway.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm wondering, for you as a first-generation college grad and now leading this organization that is focused on opening many more doors for young people and people more broadly to get to college, do you think about what your life would have been like had you not gone to college? And what are some of the ways that you think about that, if you do?
Yeah, had I not gone to college, I mean, I have plenty of folks in my community and even my family that I can look at to see what happens. I honestly, I was 16, 17 working at Taco Bell. I probably would have stayed at Taco Bell. I probably would have several children right now. I didn't have time to have kiddos because I was off at college. You could do the same, but this is my story. I probably would have remained in low income housing. I probably would have had low aspirations, and I definitely would have not had the impact that I have been able to have locally, nationally, had I not gone off to college. So I get to see within my neighborhood what happens when people do not make that change. And I'm just happy that I made the decision to go off and learn and educate myself and to be like a lifelong learner.
How often are you bringing your own experience to the table when you're talking to young people?
All the time, whether I camouflage who I'm talking about, or if I need to say like, hey, I see myself in you. It's like looking in the mirror. You're afraid. No one else in your family has done this. You don't know where the money will come from, but it's possible. You don't have to remain in your current situation. I bring it anytime I can get in front of anybody or group, because that's all I know for it to be true, is that education changed my life. So all the time.
Sakia Lee is the executive director of the Detroit College Access Network. Sakia, thanks for joining me on the Metro.
Thank you.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. Coming up, the governor's race is heating up. We'll hear from two conservatives that have a shot at the seat. That's next on the Metro. Stay with us.